Hi, we're going to look at one of the practice papers for the summer exams of 2022. This is a paper 3, which means it's a calculator one. It's the last of the exams. You have a total of 80 marks and an hour and a half to do it in. So let's start and see what the questions are like. Question 1 says circle the factor of 30, and you look at the numbers they've given us. If you're not sure, you could test things out by saying 30 divided by 12, and you're looking for the one that gives you an integer as a result, and you can see that's a fraction, so it's no good. So you can say then 30 divided by 15. Oh, that's an integer, so we're okay. So that looks like 15 is a factor, and in fact we know that 2 lots of 15 is 30. 60 isn't, because 60 is a multiple, that's 2 lots of 30, and a 9, well again, if you do 30 divided by 9, you do not get a whole number. You move to question number 2, and it says the largest number, and we have 5.3, 5.29, 5.36, 5.3412. So as I read those out, I hope you noticed that basically before the decimal place they're all 5, so I'm not really worried about that, but we're going to compare what comes after. And here we have 3, and here we have 2. 2 is smaller, so that's no good. Here we have 3, here we have 3, that's looking good. In this case there's nothing written there, which means it's like having a 0. So think of it as 3, 0. Here we have 3, 6. 3, 6 is bigger, so we can cross that one off. And it's between comparing here, so here we have 3, 6, 3, 4. You can see that 3, 6 is definitely the bigger option there. Okay. Question number 3, what is 850 meters in kilometers? And that is knowing that there are 1,000 meters in a kilometer. If you're starting in meters and you're going to kilometers, you will have to divide by 1,000. It's a calculator one, so you can take your calculator if you're not happy doing it in your head. 300, sorry, let me place it a bit better. 850 divided by 1,000 gives us 0.85. And here we have 0.85 kilometers. So we can circle that one. Okay. Question number 4. Which units would you use to measure the capacity? That's a measure like volume, like how much stuff, of a spoon. Now a spoon's quite small, so litres, there's no way you're going to put a whole litre on a spoon, so that doesn't make really sense. Pints, again, if you go to the shop and you buy milk, that's in pints, and you're definitely not buying a spoonful of milk. Millilitres, that's looking a little bit more hopeful, so we'll circle that one. And gallons, again, you talk about gallons of petrol, so that's going to be quite big. So in this case, millilitres is the one that's most suitable. Let's have a look at question number 5. And question number 5 says work out the value of b squared plus 5b. And they tell us that b is worth 8. So in other words, instead of having b, we have 8 squared. And instead of having here 5 lots of b, sorry, we have 5 lots of 8. Okay, so we're going to have 8 squared plus 5 lots of 8. So 8 squared is a calculator one, so we can just enter it exactly as we have there. So 8 squared plus 5 times 8. Now my calculator is a, sorry, made a mistake. You notice there's a plus here. I didn't write a plus, so let me go back. There we are. Because my calculator is a scientific one, it will do the order of operation correctly. So it will do the power and the multiplication first. So the answer comes out to 104. Okay, which kind of makes sense because 8 squared is 64. 5 lots of 8 is 40. 64 plus 40, you can see it's 104. So the calculator did do it correctly. Question 6 is a set of, by that I mean there's 3 parts to it, and they've provided us with a function machine for working out a calculation. We have our input, we will then add 4, then we'll multiply by 6 and we'll have an output. And the first part says what is the output, what comes out, when the input is 7. So we're going to start with 7. So the first step is going to be 7 plus 4. 7 plus 4 is 13. So at this point here we would get 13 when we come out. And so the next step is you have 13 and we'll multiply it by 6. So we have here 13 times by 6. And you can't really see there, let me just change it, 78 is the answer. So the output would be 78. Similar idea, it says work out the output when the input is 2/3. Now in my case I can actually enter 2/3 as a fraction. You might have to use a decimal otherwise, which would be 0.66 recurring. And I'm going to add to it. So this time I'm going to do it all. Make sure there's an error there. Notice my error. Oh yeah, +4. So I'm doing it all on my calculator. So I had 2/3 plus 4, which is that first step. I get my answer. And the next stage is to multiply it by 6. So multiply it by 6. Now they're not asking me for, so I can just do it all in my calculator. And at the end of that, we will get 28 coming out. Okay, it's only worth 1 mark, so you don't have to show your workings. Now we get to part 3, and part C, says work out the input when the output is -9. So in other words, we're going to start with -9 here, and we're going to work backwards to find out what the input is. Now remember, when we do that, we'll do the inverse. So we start here with -9. The opposite of multiplying by 6 is going to be divide by 6. So we have -9 divided by 6. And that comes out to -3/2. I'm going to keep that on the calculator. 3/2. The next stage is, instead of adding 4, will be take away 4. So I can just say take away 4. I just see and write it here. You don't need to do this. This is just to show what I'm doing, because obviously it's only 1 mark. And it comes out to -11/2. Okay, now they haven't asked for decimals or fractions, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. Just make sure the negative sign is very clear. 11/2. Or if you preferred, you could have changed it to a decimal, and in that case you would have a -5.5. So it's up to you which you prefer. Excellent. Question 7 says write down the mathematical name of the shape. You notice it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. They all look like they're the same length. What I mean by that, they're equal length to each of the sides. So we have 6 sides, so we know that's going to be a hexagon. And that's probably all you need for 1 mark. But in my case, I'm going to call it a regular one, because it looks like each of the sides is regular hexagon. But I think all you need is to say it's a hexagon. Okay. Juan thinks this shape is regular. In other words, each of the sides is equal length. Explain why he is wrong. And well, obviously they don't say this is an accurate drawing, so we can't just measure it and say, well, you know, that clearly that there is not the same as that bit there. But if you recognize, this looks like a right-angled triangle, and it's not quite, because obviously it doesn't quite match there, but we can see that this is nearly like an hypotenuse. And we know from Pythagoras, or also just by logic, that the diagonal could be longer than sides, because otherwise, if it were the same length, imagine you had this length here and you basically moved it along, it would be the same as that side there, so it wouldn't be able to go along like that. So basically, let's say something along the lines of, if you want to put in some arrows to indicate, I put arrows to say those 2 sides, and those are diagonals which are longer than these, because diagonals are always longer. Okay, so basically I'm just saying those 2 are diagonals and they are longer than the other sides there. Okay. Part C says in the space below draw a circle with a diameter of 6 centimeters. Now this is where I'm going to apologize, because for this you actually need a compass, and I don't have a compass on me. But what you would do for that, if you have a compass, is you would have your compass, you'd get your ruler, you'd open your compass up as far as 6 centimeters. So you'd go from 0 to 6. So you make sure that your compass was open from 0 to 6. Once you had your compass open and it was at the measurement of 6, you'd place it and then just rotate, going all the way around. Okay, but obviously my apologies for that, because I don't have, but in other words, oh sorry, my mistake, it said 6. In other words, the radius equals 3 centimeters. So you do what I just said, but you would open up your compass 3 centimeters wide, then you'd have your compass 3 centimeters wide, and you would rotate it going all the way around and get a circle. shows you need the correct equipment when doing exams. Question 8. They provide us here with a bar chart. Annie draws a bar chart to show some of the people's favourite type of film. And we have the label, and here we have an axis telling us how many. But it says write 2 criticisms of this bar chart. Now there's several things that you should notice, but one of them is look at the width of these bars. That one there, this one's wider, that one's the same as that one, that one's narrower, that one's wider. So at the moment one criticism is the width of the bars are not equal, and bar charts should always have equal width bars. Okay, now when you look around and you're trying to spot something else, you'll find that here they haven't said it started at 0, but moreover from here to here is 2, which means that's distance worth 2. So if that's 2, then when you repeat that there should be 4, and then 6, so 6 should be somewhere up there. So in other words, the scale of the vertical axis is wrong. So we'll say scale of vertical axis is wrong. Now we can be a bit more specific. How is it wrong? Well, it's wrong because basically it did not start from 0. And it is non-uniform. What we mean by that is the jump here is not the same as the jump there. The jump here is worth 2, the jump here is worth 4, but yet the distance looks like it should be the same. Okay, good. Now we're on to question 9. And question 9, Mr. Fish is paid 35,000 per year. In 1 year, that's what he's paid. He's being given a 3% pay rise. Work out how much he will be paid per year after the increase. Now, these type of questions, there's normally different ways of doing it, so find the one that suits you. What matters is that you show some workings and that we get the same answer at the end. So I'm going to do one method. It may suit you, may not suit you. Do your method and see if we get to the same answer at the end. Okay, so I'm going to work out 3%. 3% is 3 out of 100 multiplied by the full, which is 35,000. So when I do that with my calculator, I'm going to get, oops, too many, no, that's fine. And we get here that is 1,050. So we had that he had 35,000 plus the extra 1,050, so plus 35,000. And so the answer is he'll now earn 36,050. Now remember, they haven't put anything here, so I'm going to say it's pounds, and he's going to earn 36,050. Okay, so whichever method you used, make sure you're getting the same answer as I am. Question 10 is a simplification. We have some expressions. Here's 4 terms to this expression. And they say simplify. So for that one, what you need to do is identify what things can be collected. And here we have a 3g squared, and here we have a g squared. So if I put those together, I'll have 3g squared plus another g squared, which will give me 4g squared. 3 plus 1 is 4. And then here we have plus 7g, take away 2g. So 7 take away 2 is 5. So for that bit, we're going to end up with 5 lots of g. Okay, so that's our simplified term. 1 mark for each of the terms being correct. Question 11 presents us with a tree. It says it shows information of 150 students. They study languages. They're in year 10, year 11. Some are studying French, some are studying Spanish. Part A of this question says a student is selected at random, so any of these students is chosen. Find the probability are year 10 student who studies Spanish. So we're looking for year 10, which is this lot here, and out of those year 10, the ones who study Spanish. So how many are there? There are 48 students that study Spanish that are in year 10 out of all the students that they could have chosen. So that's the probability. We don't need to change it to a decimal because they haven't asked for it. Part B says the probability that a year 11 student studies French is 0.25. So the probability that they are a student French is 0.25 from these year 11s, which we know if that's 0.25, the probability of studying Spanish will be 1 take away 0.25, which is 0.75, and they're asking us to complete the frequency tree. So here we had 56 students times 0.25, so 56 times 0.25 tells us that there were 14 students studying French. Now you could say 56 minus 14 to get this one, but I'm just going to do the same thing again. 56 times 0.75, which gives us 42. 4 plus 2 is 6, 1 plus 4 is 5. Excellent, so we've completed that nicely. Into question number 12. And question number 12 continues with different students, year 7, 8 and 9s, studying French, German and Spanish, asking us to complete the two-way table. And so for these you need to kind of sometimes work forwards or backwards to fill in the missing gaps. So there are several options to start with, but basically for year 7s studying French, Spanish and German will give a total of 180. So working backwards, like it's 180, take away 58, take away 59. So 180, take away 58, take away 59. I'm doing it all in one step, and the answer comes out to 63. You might have decided instead to do the totals, year 7s, 8s, studying French, so we could add all those together. So you could say 59 plus 56 plus 35, and that would give us a total of 150 students studying French. We can repeat the same idea here, 63 year 7s plus 19 year 8s plus 38 year 9s. Now I made a mistake there, notice I did a multiplication. Oh, sorry, you can't see. I've done a multiplication, so I better go back and change that. We're adding. And that gives us an answer of 120. So like we did, if there are 400 students in total, I can take away all the ones studying Spanish, all the ones studying French to find the German. So 400, take away 150, take away 120, gives me an answer of 130. Equally on this side, if they all add up to 400, all the year 8s and all the year 9s, so we can say 400, take away 105, take away 180, leaves us with 115. So we can do what we did before. We can say this minus those and this minus those to find the missing ones. So 115, take away 19, take away 56, leaves us with 40. And 105, take away 38, take away 35, leaves us with 32. Excellent, we've completed that table. What's the next question? Question 12. Question 12 presents us with a shape, and it says it's made of 3 congruent rectangles. Congruent means they're identical, so the measurements and size of this rectangle is the same as this rectangle and that one. It's just that they've been turned around. Okay. Also tells us to work out the perimeter of the shape. Now for perimeter will be the outside of the shape, and if this side here is 18, we know that this side here will be 18. So if I'm working out the perimeter, we're going to have 18 for the left hand side plus 18 for the right hand side, but we also need to work out what the top is, which will be the same as the bottom. Okay, now how can we do that? Well, the key thing is to recognize that the full length of this rectangle is the same as 2 widths of the rectangle when it's on its side. So in other words, this full length, that full length there is the same as that full length there. Okay, so what I'm talking about is this bit here. Okay, I'm talking about the length of a rectangle is the same as that length of the rectangle there. Okay, but this is made up of 2, which in other words I can split it in 2, and that would be what the actual height of it is. So if this is 18, 18 split into 1, 2 and 3, okay, so I'm going to say 18 split into 3 will be 6. So in other words, each of this bit here, so that bit there is 6, that bit there is 6, and that bit there is 6. Why is that useful? Because then when I do that, you can notice that the longer side of the rectangle is actually 6 plus 6, which means we have a 12 there, and if it's 12 along the top, it will be 12 along the bottom. So for this one, we now can say plus another 12, plus another 12, and that will be our perimeter, 18 plus 18 plus 12 plus 12. And that gives an answer of 60. So when we come down to write our answer down here, we can say 60 centimeters, but I've already put the centimeters in there. Okay, we've done question 12. Let's have a look at question 13. Let's have a look. Where did it go? There it is, found it. So question 13, circle the shape that has 3 faces. Now, sphere only has 1 face. Pyramid can have, well, it depends on the base, could have several. Triangular prism actually has 5, and the answer for this one is a cylinder. Now if you think about it, a cylinder will have a circle as a face at the front, it will have a circle as a face at the back, and then it will have a face that goes all the way around. So it has 1, 2, 3 faces. Okay. Part B says circle the shape that has no edges. Clearly all of these have edges except for the sphere, because a sphere is like a ball, so that has no edges, no joins. Question 14 presents a formula and it asks us to rearrange it so that R is a subject, and this is where we go basically separating until we get R in its own. So we start with C equals 2 pi R. The thing to remember is that in algebra that means it's 2 times pi times radius, which means it's all multiplying. So if I want to get R in its own, I'm going to have to divide this side by 2 pi, because that's the opposite multiplying. And if I do that to the right hand side, I'm going to have to do it to the left hand side. Why did I divide? Because then I can cancel the sides and I'm left with R on its own. So I'd end up with R on this side. On this side I end up with a C over 2 pi. So if I want to write this out, I can say R is C divided by 2 lots of pi. And that's our formula rearranged. Okay, let's do question 15. Question 15 is another, call it vertical line diagram. It's a very narrow bars chart for it. And we have the number of matches played, the number of goals for a hockey team during a season. It says work out the mean number of goals scored by the hockey team. So we need to know how many goals they scored and then divide it by how many matches they played. Okay, so we're going to work out the mean. And the mean is going to be the total goals scored. So how many goals scored how many goals have they done? Okay, so let's see. So here number of goals, and they scored 1 goal. And how many times did they do it? 10. So here we have 1 goal happened 10 times, plus 2 goals happened 8 times. I mean, you could go counting. You could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is the answer from this bit here, 10. Yeah, and again here you could say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, or you could say calculation for 2 lots of 8 is 16. Okay, plus again we have 3 goals happened 4 times and 4 goals happened 3 times. So when we come to work those out, here we get 12 and here we get 12. Okay, so that's going to give us the total number of, let me just change this because the mean is all of it divided by how many, but we're not there yet. This is the total number of goals. Okay, total goals. Okay, so we have 10 plus 16 plus 12 plus 12. So total number of goals we have when we come to work out mean is going to be 50 goals divided by how many matches did they play. So how many matches did they play? Well, some 4, but there were 6 matches here. They're going to be divided by 6 matches, plus there were 10 matches here, plus there were 8 matches there, plus there were 4 there and 3 there. So that's how many matches they play. You could just count how many of these there are to find out how many matches. So we have 6, 16, 20, 28, 29, 30, 31. Okay, or you can just say 50 and actually let the calculator do the work for you. 6. Now notice I put a bracket in to tell it to do this bit first. There we are. So we have 50 divided by all of that inside the bracket, which leaves us with an answer of, that's answer 50 out of 31. Seems a bit of a unusual, well, no, I mean the mean can be something like that. Just I'm wondering, let's just check. 6 plus 10, 6 plus 10 plus 8 plus 3 is 31. Yes, so that adds up. So that's what it is. I was just checking because it just felt a little bit uncomfortable as a number. So you could write it down as a decimal if you wanted, but I'm skipping that because you saw it was quite a long decimal. Here's a road sign showing like a roundabout. Circle the order of rotational symmetry of the road sign. Now clearly you could rotate this and it would look the same. How many times? 3 times. Because you could rotate from there to there and it would look the same, from there to there and it looked the same, and from there to there, so it's 3. Order rotational 3. How many lines of symmetry does it have? Well, none. Because there's nowhere that you can split it and fold it and make it match, because the arrows, if I folded it there, the arrow would not match with, there's no arrow on this side, okay? And if you turn it around, you'll notice there's no line that you can draw and for it to work. Question 17. Nija spends 2 hours altogether doing homework. She spends 45 minutes doing English homework. What fraction of 2 hours does she spend doing her English homework? Now in this case, when we do it, we want to either be all in hours or all in minutes. So I'm going to change 2 hours into minutes, because 2 hours, if I multiply it by 60, because you have two lots of 60 in 2 hours, will be 120 minutes. So if I want to write what fraction of 2 hours does she spend doing English, 45 minutes is what she does for English. So 45 out of 60. That would be the answer. They haven't asked us to simplify it, so you could just say 45. Oh, made a mistake, not out of 60. We just said it's 2 hours. So it would be out of 120. Out of 120. There you go, 45 out of 120. You could simplify if you wanted to, but in this case they haven't asked for it, so I'm not going to waste the time on it. Convert your answer to part A into percentage. 45 out of 120, and you times it by 100. So you're going to get 45 out of 120 multiplied by 100, and the answer comes out to 37.5%. 37.5% to my percentage sign, so you can see it. Make sure your decimal is nice and clear. Okay, more like a dot. There we are. Question 18 shows us a recipe for making cupcakes. You can make 8 cupcakes if you have all these ingredients. Write the ratio. So we're looking for the butter, that one there, and the flour in its simplest form. Now butter goes first, flour goes second. Butter was 100 grams and flour was 120 grams. Now, in grams, we can drop the grams, and they want us to simplify it. So you could say, well, you notice that both are multiples of 10, so I could divide it all by 10 to end up here getting 10 and 12. Yeah, because basically what I've done there is I've just said, oh, I can divide that and that side by 10, I end up with 10 and 12. You notice that 10 is in the 2 times table and 12 is in the 2 times table. So how many 2's are in 10? 5. How many 2's are in 12? 6. So 5 to 6 is the simplest form for this ratio of butter to flour. Part B, Dora wants to make 12 cupcakes. Work out how much butter she needs. So we're just going to focus on the butter. Okay. Now, again, this is one of these questions that there are many ways of doing it. Find the one that suits you. But I'm going to write and we know that if she wants to make 8 cupcakes, she needs 100 grams of butter. But what we would like to work out is how much she needs for 12 cupcakes. That's the question we want to find out. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out how much it is for 1 cupcake. Okay, so 8 cupcakes needs 100, and I want to find out how much does 1 cupcake need, how much butter does it need. So in this case, what's happened to this side is I've divided by 8. 8 divided by 8 gives me 1, which means that this side I can divide by 8. So 100 divided by 8 doesn't give a very nice answer. It gives 12.5 grams, but that's okay, I can write it down. And then you say, well, what's happened on this side? 1 times 12 to find out 12 cupcakes. So I'm going to do the same on this side, times 12. So I have the answer ready, so I can say times 12, and it comes out to 150 grams. They've already got the grams here, so I'm okay. Now that's one method, but equally you could have said, oh, you want to have, you already know how much you need for 8 cupcakes. To get to 12 you need another 4, because 8 plus 12 is 4. 4 is half of that, so I could halve 100 to get 50. Add it onto here, so 4 plus 8 is 12, 50 plus 100. As I said, there's many ways. Find the one that suits you, but make sure that you can get 150 with your method. Question 19, work out the highest common factor of 84 and 300. And again, it's one of those questions, you'll get fed up for me saying this, where they're doing it. The long-winded way, but easy, is to write down all of the factors. And by that what I mean is you can say, okay, 84 is 1 and 84. And you can say 84 divided by 2 is 2 lots of 42. And you could do the same thing, 84 divided by 3 doesn't, I was about to say it doesn't work, and it does. So there we are, 28. We could say 84 divided by 4, 21. I should have allowed myself a bit more space, shouldn't I? Never mind. So I'm going to write it above. Give myself a bit of small space. Okay. And then we could say 84 divided by 5, but that's not going to work because it's not in the 5 times tables. 84 divided by 6, 14. So you could have 6 and 14. 84 divided by, and you can see it's a bit long-winded this, okay, so you could also do 7, and you could have 12, and 84 divided by 8 doesn't work. 84 divided by 8, let me just make sure I didn't make a mistake here. 84 divided by 9 doesn't work. 84 divided by 10 doesn't work. 84 divided by 11 doesn't work, and then we're back to what we already had, the 12 there. Okay, you can do the same for 300. You could say 300 is 1 line, so 300, 2 lots of 150, 3 lots of 100. Yep. And you can say, okay, well, what else? 4 lots of what? So 300 divided by 4 is 75. 300 divided by 5 give us 60. And you could say the same, 300 divided by 6 is 50. As I just kind of should allow myself more space, but I wanted to do something over here. That's why I've done it. Divided by, we were 60, divided by 7 doesn't work. 300 divided by 8 doesn't work. 300 divided by 9 doesn't work. 300 divided by 10 obviously does work. So we can have 10 and 30. 300 divided by 11 doesn't work. 300 divided by 12, 25, so 12 works. 25, and we can continue going. But what else? We want to check some of the things we have here, okay, like 14. 100 divided by 14 doesn't work. 300 divided by, what else do we have, like a 21 there? Doesn't work, okay? And the reason is you kind of look at all the possibilities, and then you're looking for the highest common factor. So we're looking for the highest number that's in both of them. And when we do that, and you go around looking, and sort of, I've made it messy, you'll find that the biggest number that's in both is 12. So you could write out your answer as 12. Okay. Now, it's long-winded and I don't like that method, especially when you're disorganized like I have been, but it does work because you have a calculator and you can just keep writing them down and then just make sure that you find the biggest value. An alternative route is to use prime factors. Okay, so for that one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split 84 into the prime numbers that make it. Okay, now it's in a 2 times table, so I know it can be divided by 2. 84 divided by 2 leaves us with 42. Now again, that's in the 2 times table, so I can divide by 2. Divide by 2 leaves me with 21. That's not in the 2 times table. So what makes 21? Well, we know 21 is made of a 3 and a 7, and we can just test it. 2 times 2 times 3 times 7 does give 84. Good. And again, we can do the same thing for 300, and 300 can be divided by 2. 300 divided by 2 to get 150. We can divide that by 2 because it's in the, to get 75. Now that's an odd number, so I can't divide by 2, but it's in the 5 times table, so I could divide that by 5, and you'll find out that there's a 5 in there. 15. What makes 15? Well, times 3 times another 5. And we can test it. 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 5 does give us 300. And now what we need to do is we need to find all the factors, all the prime factors that are 84 and 300. So they both have a 2, they both have a 2 repeated, they both have a 3 repeated, but there's no 7 and there's no 5 in either of them. So the answer is going to be 2 times 2 times 3. Now 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12, which gives you this answer that we already had, 12. Okay. Question 20. Now what the point about here is that there's different ways of doing it. I prefer that side, but you might prefer that side. If you do this one, just be organized. Okay. Question 20 shows us 2 parallel lines. Now in the exam they should actually be marking them as parallel lines like that. Okay. And they say which of the angles is an alternate angle labelled to 150. So they've presented us with this one here being 115. And they're asking us for the one that is alternate to that. Now alternate is always inside the parallel lines. So if I cover that up, I'm left with C, D and B. Now this is an obtuse angle, so the only other obtuse angle is D, so the answer for this one is D. Okay, so what they mean by alternate is they're on alternate sides of that line there, so basically it's that one there. Okay, D. If you marked B or C, they are acute, so they don't match. That's an obtuse. And if you said A, well A was outside, not inside the parallel lines. Question 21 says here's a table, show the scores. Oh, it shows the scores of a biased dice when it's rolled 200 times. Okay, so how many times did it score a 1? 21 times. How many times did it land on a 2? 65 times, etc. Estimate the probability that the dice lands on a multiple of 3. So we need to find where are the multiples of 3. So this is a multiple of 3 and it landed on it 42 times. This is a multiple of 3 and it landed on it 52 times. Numbers, the other scores are not multiples of 3. So how many times did it land on it? Landed on 42 times plus another 52 times out of all the times it was thrown, and it was thrown 200 times. If you add all these, it should give you 200. So 42 plus 52 is 94, so we're going to get 4 on top out of 200. So you can leave it as a fraction, or if you prefer, you could change it to a decimal. Okay, so you could have written it as, if you prefer, 0.47. Doesn't matter, whichever suits you, because they haven't specified what they wanted. Question 22. We have a shape, it's made up of a square and a triangle. Now that's key because they tell us a square, which means that this side measures the same as that side, measures the same as that side, measures the same as that side. Okay? So that tells me that this bit here is 12. So that side there would be 12. Good. What are they asking for? They're asking to work out the area of the shape. Well, we're working out the area of the square. The base is 12 and the side is 12. You could say 12 times 12, which is going to be 100. Oops, made a mistake. 144. Okay, we're working out the area of the triangle. We need a base. Now the base of the triangle is here, but it's the same as the base of this square, so it's going to be 12 times the height. Now that's the bit we're going to have to work out, because we want to find out what is the height of the triangle, and the triangle is, that's the height of that triangle, that red line. And to do that, we know that all of this is 26 and this bit here is 12. So 26 take away 12 leaves us with 14. So in other words, that bit there, 14. We can check 4 plus 2 is 6, 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so when we come to the height of this triangle, it's going to be 14, and then we have to divide by 2, because whenever you're working out the area of a triangle, it's base times height, and they divide by 2. So 12 times 14 divided by 2 gives us 84. So the area, the total area, is going to be 144 plus 84. 144 plus 84 is 228 centimeters squared. Now sometimes they don't write that there, they ask for the units. Remember, you'd write centimeters squared for that. Okay, good. So we're on to question 23. Question 23 is quite a long one. How do I know that? Because it's 4 marks and I've given some space for calculations. And it says Whitney buys 12 boxes of apples for £8 each. There are 30 apples in each box. She sells 90 apples for 30 pence each, and the remaining apples at 5 for the price of £1. Does she make a profit or loss? Show your workings to justify your answer. So since we're talking about profit or loss, to work out the profit, we just need to remind ourselves that that is how much money comes in from sales. Take away all the money that goes out from costs. Okay. And then if this is a positive number, it means they've made a profit, and if it's a negative one, it means they've lost some money. When we come to do that, we're going to have to work out how much was the cost. Okay, so the cost of buying all these apples, she bought each of the for £8, and she bought 12 boxes. So 8 times 12, 8 times 12 is 96. So that's how much money she spent in costs. So now we're going to have to work out how much money she made, so that in other words, this is how much money goes out. Okay, and now we're going to work out how money comes in from the sales. Okay, so there are 30 apples in each box. So somewhere we need to think, what does that mean? Well, that means that she had 30 apples in one box, but she bought 12 boxes. So she had 30 times 12, she had a total of 60 apples. Okay, and that's key, because here when it says the remaining, we know if she sells 90 at this, then the leftovers are here. And we can only work that out if we know there's 360 apples to start with. Okay, so sales. They tell us that she sold 90 of the apples for 30 pence. Now this is in pounds, so I'm going to use 35 pence written in pence as pounds. Okay, if you wanted to, you could change that into pence, but I'm going to change and work in pounds. So 90 times 0.35 comes out to £31 and 50 pence. That's how much money comes in from selling 90 apples. Okay, but the other sales are what's left over, so let's think about that. So there were 90 apples, so if there were 360 apples and she sold 90 apples, what's left of them is going to be 270 apples. Okay, now she sells them in groups of 5, so I want to find out how many groups of 5 there are. So I'm going to say 270 divided by 5 will tell me how 54 groups, and each of those she sold for £1. So we can say 54 times 1. Well, that's not very exciting, it's just going to be £54. So the total sales is going to be £31.50 and another £54. So if I come back to my profit, the profit is going to be the money that comes in, which is £31.50 from those sales, plus the £54 from here, take away the costs, and the costs we calculated were 96. Okay, so this is all the money that comes in from selling apples, and this is what it costs to buy those apples. And we put that into a calculator, we say 31.5 plus 54, take away 96, and it comes out, you notice, to a negative answer. It says negative 10.5, okay, which means that she lost money. Okay, so I'm just going to write that there. Just make it nice and clear that you know that she lost, and the reason is because it was a negative. She ended up paying more than what she had for money coming in. Right, we're on to question 24, and it says here are the first 5 terms of an arithmetic sequence. Now, arithmetic sequence is when you add or take away a number each time. So you notice in this case it's getting bigger, so they're adding a fixed amount to each one. So it goes -6 to -2 to 2, and it goes jump. So here we go from 6 to 4 to 10, which means it's gone up 4. Going from 2 to 6, going up 4. So you notice that in each of these cases it's increasing by 4. Okay. It says find an expression n for the nth term of the sequence. So we need something that would help us generate that. So it's in the 4 times tables, okay, because each time. So it's in the 4 times tables. So I'm going to say it's, now I'm going to use the letter X, but you could use the letter N. No, I need to use the letter N because it actually says here in terms of N. So let's see, that's where it helps in the question. Okay, 4n. Now at the moment, if I just put in 1 here, I get 4, but the first number is not 4. If I put 2 in here, the second number would be 8, and that's not 8. So to correct it, I'm going to have to take some away. So if I put 1 in here, I get 4, but I want it to actually be a -6. So what do I need to do to get it to -6? Well, I need to take away all that 4 and that one there, so I'm going to have to take 10 away. Let's test it. 1 times 4, take away 10, gives us -6. Okay, let's do the next one. That's 2 there, that's the second position. So 2 times 4, actually it should be 4 times 2, but no, take away 10, and hopefully it will give us -2. Does it works? So third position, so 4 times 3, take away 10, gives us 2. So that is our expression. Our expression is 4, because it's in the 4 times tables, but then we corrected because the first answer was not 4, so we had to take some away to get there. Okay. The first 2 terms of a geometric sequence. Now geometric means it's multiplying, so each time you jump it's timesing, are 80 and 20. So it says the phone. So we start off 80 and the next number would be 20. Okay, and obviously then we have the next number, and they want us to work out what is that third number. Now arithmetic, we went adding a certain amount. Geometric, you multiply, but notice it's going down. So in other words, you're multiplying by a fraction. Yeah, so what's happened? Or it could also be a division. So 80 divided by what gives 20? Well, focus on this. Here's an 8 and here's a 2. So what happens to the 8 to make it into 2? Well, you divide by 4. Yeah, let's test it. 80 divided by 4, and if it gives us 20, we know it's working. So the next one is going to be the same. You're going to divide it by 4. So 20 divided by 4 gives us another 5, and so the third term is 5. Okay, obviously if you wanted a fourth term, then you divide again by 4, divide by. So geometric sequences, you multiply and divide. Arithmetic, you add and you subtract. Question 25 is a vector one. They provide 2 vectors, a and b. It says write 4a plus 2b as a vector. So in this case what we do is we basically substitute. So we have 4 lots of A, and A is 2, plus 2 lots of B, and B is 4. So I'm doing the calculation with the top numbers 2 and 4. And when we do that, 4 times 2 is 8, 2 times 4 is 8, 8 plus 8 is 16. Okay. So we have our column vector here, the top one will be 16. We repeat it for the bottom one. The bottom one we had 4 lots of -3 plus 2 lots of 2. I've used a -3 and a 2 for A and B. Okay, and here we get -12, but if you're not happy, just put it in your calculator and you see you get -12. Okay, and then you're going to add it to 4, because 2 times plus 4 will give us -8. And so here we write -8. And that's your answer, 16, -8, and you put your column is in a column with a bracket around it. That's quite nice. Question 26. We have a graph. They present some information. It says pink paint is made by mixing white and red in this ratio. So the first is white, the second one is red, white and red. Show this information on a graph, a straight line graph. Here we have white on the bottom and red on the vertical. So what does it say? It says every time we have one red, we'll have 4 whites. So red, every time we have one red, we'll have 4 whites. So okay. So if we did the next one, if I doubled it, I'd end up with 8 white for 2 red. So when it's 2 red, I'd end up with 8 white. And you could do it again if you wanted to, but in this case it's enough, it's a straight line. So I'm just going to join the crosses that we have, and there we are. Okay, so that's my graph in this case. So you basically are putting less red and more white to make it a kind of perhaps a lighter pink. How much red paint is needed to make 60 litres of pink paint? So in this case, what we want is, we know that the ratio white to red, which is 4 to 1, and we want to find out how much red paint is needed. Okay, so that's the question there. So we first of all, to find a total, here's a total 60, and so I'm going to take 60 and I'm going to split it into 5 parts. So 60 divided by 5 is 12. So I'm going to have 12. So each part is worth 12. So if they were asking me for white paint, I'd say 4 lots of 12, but they're just asking for red, so 1 lot of 12 is 12 litres. There we are. Quite a straightforward one this time. Obviously it could have been more complicated. It wasn't. Question 27. Here is a graph. They've already drawn it for us. They're asking us to write the coordinates of the turning point, and the turning point is when it turns, so the turning point is just there. Okay, so the coordinates is going to be 1, comma, and how high up is it 4? The turning point is when the curve turns round, and it turns round at that top point there. Okay. Then it asks us, using the graph, write down the roots. Now the roots is, where does this equation equal 0? Okay, in other words, where's the y-axis 0? And here's the y-axis, and it's a 0, and it will cross, and it crosses basically there and there. So our answers are, it crosses when x is equal to -1 and when x is equal to 3. 2 answers because it crosses at 2 points. Question 28. We have a ratio x to y 5 to 2, and they say x plus y is 175. Work out the value of x minus y. Okay, so this means the total x and y together is 175. So we're going to take our total, because remember adding, so that's what this is, a total, and we're going to split it into how many parts we have, and we have 5 plus 2, 7 parts. So 175 divided by 7 means each part is worth 25. Okay, we had x and y. X was worth 5, y was worth 2 parts. Each part is 25. So 5 lots of 25, 5 times 25 is 125. And 2 lots of 25 is 50. And if you add these together, you notice you are indeed back to 175. Okay, so we now know x is 125 and y is 50. And they wanted to work out what x minus y was. And x was 125. Take away y, which is 50. And 125 minus 50 leaves you with 75. So the answer to this calculation was 75. So what we did is you needed to spot an addition, a total. The total, we were going to find out how much 5 and 2 were worth. So we took our total, we split it into 7 bits, found out 5 lots of those, 2 lots of those. We then know what the x is and the y is, and then we can do our calculation. Question 29. Miss Ahmed is driving along a motorway that has a speed limit of 70 miles per hour. So in 1 hour, you're not meant to go more than 70 miles. In 20 minutes, she travels 18 miles. Is her average speed during this period greater or less than the speed limit? Show your workings. So what I'm going to do is basically, this is in an hour, okay? And an hour is 60 minutes. So if this is 20 minutes, I'm going to say, well, 20 minutes plus another 20 minutes plus another 20 minutes will give me the 60 minutes, which is the same as 1 hour. So in 20 minutes, she travelled 18 miles. So another 20 minutes, she travelled another 18 miles. And then she travelled another 18 miles. So 18 times 3, because there are 3 lots of 18, gives us 54 miles. Yeah. And the question was, in 1 hour, was she travelling more than 70 miles per hour? And here, in 1 hour, she travelled 54 miles. So in this case, it's less. Less because her speed was 54 miles. Sorry, let me just bring it up there. Miles per hour. Okay, definitely less than the speed limit by quite a bit. Question 30. It's a trigonometry one. We're presented with a right angled triangle. They have given us a side and angle, and we have a missing side. It says work out x. So in this case, we need to label what do we have. So if that's our angle, this is our opposite side. This is the hypotenuse, or something that has opposite and hypotenuse in our trigonometric ones. And if you know or look on a formula sheet, you'll see that sine of the angle, and the angle is 35, is equal to the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. Yes? But we can substitute instead of the opposite. What was the opposite? The opposite was x, the one we're trying to find out. Okay, so that was x. And what was the hypotenuse? Hypotenuse was worth 10, so we can substitute that one in there. So using the idea that sine angle is equal to opposite of the hypotenuse, I substituted the values, and instead of the angle, I wrote 35. Instead of the opposite, I wrote x. Instead of the hypotenuse, I wrote 10. Okay. We want to find out what x is. Okay. And to do that, I want the x on its own. So to have the x on its own, I need to multiply this side by 10. Why? Because then it would cancel. But if you do that to the right hand side, you need to multiply the left hand side too, to keep it balanced. So x would now be worth 10 lots of sine 35. So you have your calculator, you say 10 times sine, find your sine button, 35, close brackets, and you end up with an answer that comes out to 5.7357, and it continues for quite a bit. Okay, makes sense, it is less than 10. 5 is less than 10. Here there are no decimal places, so I'll probably have one decimal place. I'll call it 5.7, rounded to one decimal place, because the next one was 3, so if I round it, it becomes 5.7. Okay, we're on to question 1. And question 31 says the length of a piece of wood is 294 centimeters when truncated to the nearest centimeter. complete this error interval. So if this is near a centimetre, I have 1 centimetre. Split into 2, which gives me 0.5 centimetres. And my error interval, to do that, I'm going to have my 924. I'm going to take away, and I'm going to add 0.5 that we calculated to it. Okay, so 294 plus 0.5 will come out to 294.5, and if I take away 294, take away 0.5, I'm going to be left with 293.5, and my error interval is that the length can be equal or bigger to that, but less than that value there. Now that's interesting. I'm just looking to see, because that seems like it's the end of that question. Oh well, that's fine then. Brilliant. That was useful. I'll see you next time. Bye.